Here's your little tutorial on how to sew one of these. So this is what the character might look like at the end. It really depends. Yeah. So let's start. So first of all, as you can see here, I already stitched together the main character, the body, and so here's the front, and then here is the back of the body, as you can see from the little butt line. So first, what I'm gonna do is I have these two fabrics. They're like minky type fabrics, and I have one in like the skin color and also one as the hair color. I'm gonna first start off with the head. As you can see over here, I'm just taking out some needles to sew with. I like to use a straight needle just because it is the easiest and the most accessible. So here I am just tracing it with this water soluble ink pen that I got from the fabric store. It is mainly just because I can draw on the pattern, and then also I can just waterboard the kids after, you know, to get it off. As you can see here, you can kind of see a little bit of like the blue, and then I'm gonna put the embroidery hoop underneath. Secure like the fabric with the pattern drawn inside of it. I like to secure it so that the face section that I'm going to use is going to be relatively centered. You can use a mesh for this part and cut it out, or you can just draw it directly on like what I have done. But yeah, if you don't have a water soluble pen, you can just like use mesh and then use like a pen and then just draw it on and secure both pieces of fabric. Yeah, so here I am just going to quickly draw on the face. I wasn't not very accurate with this one. You'll see me change this a few times throughout the video, but that's okay. Yeah, and then I obviously have my other kid as a reference. I'm also taking out the type of thread that I want, so I'm using a maroon thread, a black thread, and a brown thread because those are just the colors I use. And for the eye highlights, I just keep it with the original like fabric that it comes with. I'm also separating the thread right here just so that I'm able to get smaller details. I prefer to separate like the original embroidery thread into like 2 separate threads instead of using the original 6. So here you can just watch me really slowly ply this apart. I'm using like a little needle here because I cannot do it with my fat ass fingers. And yeah, I do sometimes bite it just to like unravel it, just since it is a lot faster and a lot easier. But you know, to each their own. It gets tangled a lot. You'll just have to deal with it. And I just cut out as much thread as I think I might need. Obviously, if this is your first time sewing, just get a longer one, but also just know that if the longer it is, it'll I also like to use one of these like little like needle stringer thingies, and they're made of wire, and I just use it because sometimes it's hard to get the thread through the eye of the needle. And now over here, I'm just going to start the actual sewing. I'm going to go in through the end of the eye because that's just where I prefer to start. I go almost all the way through, and then I like to poke the next hole like pretty much right beside where my initial hole is, just so that I'm able to do a little tie at the back. I'm not sure if this is the way you're supposed to tie things, but for me it has yet to fail me, so I pretty much just tie it. I want to say like a shoelace. It's not. You're just doing like a nice little square knot, double knot, depends on what you want to call it, at the back, and then afterwards you could just sew through with it. I like to also cut off the extra string just so that it doesn't get tangled in the thread later, because that will happen. And it has happened multiple times. Personally for me, I prefer to start with the outlines with like the black, like the darkest color first, and then fill in the inside with whatever other color I need. So for the next little while, you'll just probably watch me sew this. This part does take the longest out of everything else, I think, in my opinion, but that's okay. Also, I do go over the proportions again. If I printed my pattern, this would make my life easier, but instead I decided just to bullshit this at like 3 in the morning. So yeah. Outside of that, I don't really have like any specific tips for this section. Just if your thread gets tangled, sometimes I will try my best to like untangle it, but if it's like absolutely fucking hopeless, then just cut it, tie it at the back, and then just leave it and just start another one. Same thing, where you just poke a hole in it and then just
2,000 years later.
But I finally finished the embroidery. That took me, I think, about 40 something minutes. It's not the cleanest, but honestly it's fine. I also decided to give him like a little scar, since, you know, he gets the nice little hammer to the head. And yeah, so that's what I was using the pink thread for. I decided that part a little bit later, so here you could just watch me sew this. Alright, moving on. So now I'm just like drawing again on the fabric with the fabric marker, just to make sure that my lines are perfectly clean, because some of them did get washed off. And I'm just gonna cut like about like half a centimeter out from the original pattern I drew. This is just to make sure that I don't accidentally like make the fabric like break apart when I am sewing it at the end. I also cut like these little indents into the V-shaped sections of the pattern. I think it's called like a tab or something. I'm not 100% sure. But this is just so that when you pinch it together and you like sew it together, it can make that more like rounded head shape instead of just like two flat pieces. And I'm just gonna do that for like pretty much everything that has the little V shapes. I'm just gonna do a little snip. Yeah, and then the rest of the beige, I'm not 100% sure what the color is, like fabric I'm going to use for the ears and also the chin piece. The chin piece is the U-shaped piece, and I will be cutting out 4 of the ear flaps because they're double-sided on like the fluffy side, so we have to sew those 2 together, and then just 1 of the chin pieces. Again, with these ones you have to cut them with like a little bit of a seam allowance. I like to do like roughly half a centimeter. Honestly, I just eyeball it. If it looks like it'll be fine, then it's fine. Just like literally just don't cut too close to the line is pretty much the gist of it. If you cut too far, sometimes with like the smaller pieces like the ear, it does make it a little bit harder to flip it inside out after. So just be aware of that. I like to use my little scrap fabric that I use for the like I cut off from the head as like the little ear pieces. Just because I do have a lot of extras, and honestly, better not to spend too much money on materials, right? In this economy, it'd be crazy. I'd also like you to know that this recording is done at like 2 in the morning, both the literal recording for the sewing and also my voiceover right now, so excuse the tiredness potentially. I don't even know, I don't sound tired, but my voice is totally dead, and that's okay. Alright, now that I'm done cutting out everything, I'm just going to set the kids aside. I'm just gonna throw them randomly. So now I'm just going to take out my black fabric that I'm going to use for the hair. I decided to do the little black eagle this time because I already have a pink one. Alright, so with the black fabric, the water-soluble marker that I usually use is not really possible on it. So instead I do have these white Taylor chalk. I think I got them from one of the fabric stores near me. I think you can probably get them in like any craft store really. And I'm obviously going to use a white one. So for this, there's going to be 2 pieces, or technically 2 pattern pieces, or I guess 3 if you cut it out, but it doesn't really matter, because for the front one, it's just going to be like the little front bangs, the bigger piece, and you can see that it's modeled very closely off of the actual headpiece. And then the back, you can see there's 2 panels, and each of them, they're basically just mirrored, so you only really need like 1 sheet of paper, and you can just flip it back and forth. And just trace those. And that's it. And then for the little antenna thing that I like to add, I just use a little bit of scrap at the end. Just letting you know that when you are cutting out the bangs to flip it backwards, because since you're working, pretty much inside out and you're gonna flip the plushie inside out after, it'll pretty much like mirror the bangs and all that, like all the hair and stuff, it'll get mirrored at the end. So it's just a good idea to generally, if you have a certain direction your hair needs to go, just to flip it backwards when you're tracing it. Thankfully, when it comes to literally just cutting out paper, it's not particularly hard to do. Also, if you're wondering why I'm not cutting out 2 sheets of fabric for the bangs, it's mainly because I like to have like the little details in the hair, and also I like to bald my kids, so that's always a good plus. If you do like the 2 pieces of fabric, you just kind of end up losing a little bit of the little curves, and it also is a little bit harder just to flip inside and out, but it is possible. It really depends on if you want both sides of the hair to be fluffy, slash if you want to bald them or not. But I'm perfectly fine with my kids having very flat hair. So here I'm just gonna be tracing this forever and ever with the white chalk. Obviously I'm gonna like leave a little bit of a gap just so that there's, again, a seam allowance when I do cut this out in the end. And then I'm just gonna go cut every single one of them out. Again, like with the head, you just gotta cut out the little tabs as well, just make sure of that. The only issue that I have with chalk is that you do sometimes end up losing a bit of the lines when you are like actually working with it. So I'm just gonna rethread the needle, and then I'm just gonna start sewing. So what I like to do first is I like to like pinch the 2 little open tab sections, and then first stitch together, like basically do a little knot between the 2, so that I can kind of get that rounded shape at first. I'm pretty sure you're supposed to do this part before you actually start like sewing the pieces together. I like to just do like a little double knot. Sometimes if the cuts are a little more deep, I like to do 2 knots. Basically I'm pretending I'm cosplaying a surgeon, but like much worse and much less precise, and that's okay. And I'm just gonna do that to pretty much every single piece that this happens to. So the 2 little back pieces mainly are the first like little culprits of this, but yeah. And when it comes to the front head pieces, you're actually gonna have to sew them together. So even though you're gonna still do the curve thing, like the little knot, you're just gonna have to keep both the pieces together when you do work on this part, just so that like the fabric doesn't weirdly separate. I know in my first Ewol iteration, the little part of his hair does look a little bit more like puffed out at the top compared to my other versions of Stupid Little Dolls. And yeah, it's a lot of me just working in the background. Sorry about that. And then I'm just gonna repeat the step for the other 2 corner tabs things of the headpiece, and then once we are done this, we can hopefully, in theory, finally start sewing things together. I also, as you can see over here, I just cut out a little section of the little antenna because it's just an extra piece of fabric, and the antenna's not necessary. I just think it makes it easier to fling these kids around, you know. Here I have the two pieces of the ears. What I like to do, make sure that both the fluffy side of the fabric is facing the inside of the ear. Facing the inside, facing towards each other before you start sewing. Because if you don't, then you are doing everything backwards, and you'll either get a really smooth outside looking plush, which is weird, or you get a plush with like very obvious like stitch lines. I mean, I guess it's still pretty obvious, but you know, at least you can like kind of hide it inside right now. I like to do a little knot at the top first, and then I work on the outside, work on the like the D shape, or I guess the C crescent shape of the ear first, and we're gonna keep the middle part open so that we can flip it inside out. Also, I feel like this goes without saying, but once you're done with the first guy, you're just gonna flip him inside out, and then you're gonna work on the second ear. Probably forgot to mention this earlier, but the fabric I'm using is like this minky fabric, or like Velveta fabric. You can honestly just get it off of Amazon if you're really desperate. But your local fabric store might have it. I'm not sure about craft stores. I have not checked there. I just went to a little fabric store for things. And yeah, sometimes I do like to use tools to push it in and out, because it's a pain in the ass. Now for the little sprout part, my favorite little addition to the kids, so I can spin them. Anyways, so for the little sprout, I'm just gonna get like this random piece of fabric, and I'm just gonna fold it in half and then just pretty much just sew a U shape. It's not very like, there's not really a pattern for it, I'd say. It's just like, you're just basically kind of like sewing a straw. For me, I did accidentally make this a little bit too, like, I made the opening a little too thin, so I did have I had a lot of struggle trying to flip it inside out. But as you can see, I'm trimming off the excess because it gets really hard to flip. Well, it got hard to flip anyways, but it gets like really, really hard to flip if you have too much fabric on the inside. And it also just makes their little sprout a little too thick, and it's just hard to like spin them around as well. So yeah, just watch me suffer, I guess. Okay, managed to do it. Yay. Okay, the next part I'm gonna do is I'm going to just quickly sew the chin together. So for the chin, I'm going to actually have, I know it's not obvious, but I'm gonna sew the chin where we are like staring straight at the face, and we're gonna cover it with the back of the chin. Again, the fluffy parts stay inside / the embroidery part. I like to first do like 2 little knots on both sides, so it's basically how I usually sew things, was just go in, come out like right beside it, and then tie a little knot. And I like to do it on these like little like tabs on the head, because if you look at the head pattern, there's like a little indent at the bottom, and that's where I sew the tip of the chin, and also like the tip of the chin to the head. And that I first like to do this little like tie just to make sure that the chin doesn't like move around too much when I am sewing, because sometimes I do sew things and things get a little wonky, so you know, this is just a good way to kind of prevent that. Done. I'm going to sew the ears. I'm going to have the ears facing inside towards the face, and I'm not going to flip anything else around, but basically just have the face align with the chin, and then have it just like have both the ears basically like point towards the eye. Like the outside of the ear points towards the eye. And then you're just gonna sew it. I like to sew the bottom of the ear to the tip of the chin. And then hope to God that they don't put too much fabric in one section or too much thread in one section, but that should be fine. So yeah, just a lot more sewing happens again. Once you're done one side, again, obviously, you're gonna work on the other side of the ear as well, because we don't want our child to only be able to hear out of one ear or one side and just have nothing on the other side, right? Once I'm done this section, I do just like to, well, obviously I have to snip the thread first, but I like to just flip around the head just to make sure that everything is in working-ish order, and he looks fine, I guess. He looks distressed, but I feel like that's just kind of evil, so I don't really care that much. That's his problem to deal with, not mine. I tried to make him happy, okay? I don't know how to make him happy. I only know how to make my make my dolls either sad or in distress. And that's okay, you know? So we all have our own strengths. Anyways, I'm gonna go sew together the two back sides now, and I'm gonna sew like the long curved side without the like little tabs first, because that is like the middle seam. I like to put little pins in it just to make sure that nothing moves. I could just like do the little tie method again, but I feel like for this, since I'm gonna just go straight across and not like I'm doing much else, it doesn't matter too much. So once I get to the end, I'm just going to go back and forth, and then I'm gonna add like the head piece and also the little sprout piece to it as well, and I'm just gonna go sew in and out of that part, and then I just have to kind of sew around the head, and once I get to the end, I just tie it together. Like I get the chin and then I tie it together, and then I flip to the other side. Pretty straightforward, and then just like sew together the other side, because I do start from the middle, so it is a little bit weird. And then once I'm done that, I'm able to flip the little guy inside out, which for some reason takes a really long time. Oh my god, surprising literally nobody. And then I stuff his head with the extra fabric that I've cut off, and then afterwards I put a bunch of cotton in him, you know, giving him some brain. There is my little evil head. Yay, lovely. And then now it's finally time to sew the body and the head together. Personally for me, I like to use a curved needle. I have bookbinding needles. You can do this with a straight needle. I just personally find it a little bit easier with a curved needle. And I like to just sew together both the head and the body, and then just obviously do a little tie, and then I just go in and out, back and forth, and I try not to tighten the thread every time. I try to keep it really loose at first, just so that I'm able to actually get into each of the crevices of the doll. And then obviously at the end, I'm going to pull really tightly. I'm just gonna go around slowly, pretty much like if you're lacing a corset, you're just gonna go around it and then tie it off in the end. So now here is our lovely little child, who was definitely created willingly, and he loves me. And I also give him a little haircut at the end because I realized that the ears are not popping out again. But yeah, now that I'm done this kid, I'm just gonna quickly waterboard him and then let him to dry. Also, I'm just going to link the base pattern that I used down below in the description. Thanks for watching. Yay!